Bugatti Chiron is the replacement for the Veyron, a car that moved the supercar goalposts so far they were off the pitch and halfway down the tunnel. But since the Veyron appeared back in 2005, other manufacturers have closed the performance and price gap, producing cars like the Porsche 918 Spider, Ferrari LaFerrari and McLaren P1. Bugatti, for its part, claims it has no rivals, but to keep it that way, the Chiron is significantly faster and more powerful than the Veyron. The concept is similar, though. Where Porsche, Ferrari and McLaren's halo cars are very definitely inspired by the racetrack, the Bugatti has a uniquely luxurious slant. Unrivaled quality Bugatti's no plastic policy means that everything you see and touch in the interior is either leather, metal or carbon fiber. The steering wheel is milled from a solid aluminium billet, the front Bugatti badge is made from real silver and the four tweeters from the Equitone audio system feature real diamonds. The Chiron bears a clear resemblance to the Veyron in the styling of its bodywork, whose sweeping C-shaped side panel is claimed to be the largest single carbon fiber panel on any production car. That C-shape is echoed inside the cabin to create a sense of separation between the driver and passenger. The Chiron also features several active aerodynamic devices that help the car switch from high to low drag configurations, just like an F1 car, depending on whether the driver wants to prioritize cornering power or straight-line speed. Unmatched performance, but no hybrid technology under the carbon skin lies an evolution of the Veyron's 8.0-litre quad-turbocharged W16 engine driving all four wheels lower 7-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox. More than a decade on from its launch, the Veyron's 1001 horsepower still sounds outrageous, and Bugatti later boosted that to 1200 horsepower for the Supersport. But the Chiron adds another 300 horsepower to even that, for a total of 1500 horsepower, which is backed up by 1600 Nm of torque, pulling power. Unlike recent hypercars from Porsche, Ferrari, McLaren and Sweden's Geneva, the Chiron does not feature any hybrid element to its powertrain design. That means it has no zero-emission city mode like the P1, and is not able to deliver the instant response of LaFerrari. But it is still faster than both, reaching 62 miles per hour in less than 2.5 seconds, and 186 miles per hour in under 13.6 seconds. The top speed is electronically limited to 261 miles per hour, although a Bugatti test driver will try to top 280 miles per hour in an unrestricted car on a German test track in 2018. One version at launch but more to follow? For now there is only one version of the Chiron, a closed coupe, and one engine and transmission combo. But the levels of personalization possible are almost endless, depending only on how far you open your wallet, meaning it's unlikely any two Chirons will be exactly the same. Over time it is inevitable that the range will be fleshed out with convertible and even more powerful supersport derivatives. Read on to find out more about the Bugatti Chiron in our full review. The fastest car in the world electronically limited to 261 miles per hour. Some turbo lag, disappointing noise. There is not another production car on the planet that will keep pace with the Bugatti Chiron, either from a standing start, or flat out on the autobahn. A 1,995 kilograms curb weight sounds closer to the SUV than supercar class, but the Bugatti's 1,500 horsepower 8.0-litre W16 engine overcomes it to deliver some astonishing performance figures. And daft as it may sound, the 2.5 seconds 0 to 62 miles per hour time is the least impressive of them, because at that point the Chiron is only just getting into its stride. Find the space to legally stretch the Bugatti's legs and it'll reach 124 miles per hour, 200 kilometers per hour, in 6.5 seconds, which is about the time it takes for a good hot hatch to achieve half that speed. Then things get really silly. From rest to 186 miles per hour, 300 kilometers per hour, occupies only 13.6 seconds and, given enough room, the Chiron will eventually run into an electronic limiter at 261 miles per hour, but only if you've inserted the second key down by the driver's sill to active the low drag mode. Without the second key inserted, the Chiron is limited to 236 miles per hour. At some point in 2018, Bugatti will attempt a top speed run without any speed limiter at all, and hopes to achieve 280 miles per hour breathtakingly fast with massive traction, despite arranging the four turbochargers to come on stream in pairs rather than all at once to improve response. There is some turbo lag, the momentary pause between pressing the accelerator and getting a response. but the huge 1,600 Newton-meters of torque on offer is delivered over a wide range, and beyond 4,000 ppm, the acceleration is punishingly vicious. The biggest shock, after the wallop in the back when you put your foot down, is that the Bugatti deploys its performance with almost no fuss. Traction is excellent, and even at 200 miles per hour, the Chiron feels absolutely planted, without a trace of vibration through the controls. Unfortunately, the soundtrack is similarly subdued. There's more growl mixed in with the turbo whine this time, but other hypercars are more exciting to listen to. More involving than the Veyron, enormous speed and stability, easy to drive, tricky to park. Unlike Ferrari and McLaren, Bugatti makes no claims of racetrack prowess for its hypercar. Going fast in a straight line is the Chiron's major selling point, but that isn't to say it doesn't like corners. It might not be as agile or playful as a Ferrari 488 GTB, but the Chiron is actually very competent on a twisty road, and more involving than the Veyron never was. At 1,995 kilograms, the Chiron is very heavy in hypercar terms, but that mass is well controlled by the new adaptive dampers, which give an excellent blend of ride comfort in town, body control through corners, and stability over fast and straight, but undulating, roads. Adaptive suspension works well. A rotary dial on the lower left of the steering wheel lets you choose between an automatic mode, labeled EB, for the founder, a Tour Bugatti, handling mode, which makes the steering heavier and the suspension firmer, and Autobahn mode, which lowers the car, but keeps the suspension supple. Predictably, handling mode feels the most dynamic, but the steering feels a little heavy. In EB mode, the steering feels lighter, meaning the car itself feels lighter, but it retains the same excellent precision and gearing that's much more relaxing than a Ferrari super quick steering setup. Amazingly easy to drive. In fact, the Chiron isn't only very fast from point to point, it's also very easy to drive quickly or slowly, and takes no time to get used to. Anyone could jump in and feel at home within less than a minute, which isn't something you could say about many other supercars. Parking, however, is a different matter. A fourth setting on the steering wheel rotary control raises the nose to negotiate speed bumps, and there is a rear view camera for reversing. But the screen, located in the instrument binnacle to the right of the speedo, is small and the turning circle is huge. 310 miles per hour speedometer, distractions reduced as you go faster. Incredible attention to detail. 3 things strike you when first climbing into the Chiron. The first is the gigantic speedometer, which reads right round to 310 miles per hour. It's an analog gauge, rather than digital, Bugatti reasoning that if a young child managed to peer through the window of a car that was parked with the engine off, they'd still be able to read that incredible final measurement. The next thing you notice is that unlike almost any even moderately expensive car, there is no screen in the center console. There are 2 small screens either side of the speedometer which can display trip, audio and navigation details, but they'll seem disappointingly modest to tech-loving drivers. Bugatti, sensibly, would rather you keep your eyes focused on the job in hand when driving your 1,500 horsepower supercar, and has even configured the instrument cluster to pare back on information displayed as your speeds increase, giving you only key details like speed and engine revs. Not the most intuitive controls, but immense quality. The center console itself is home to 4 rotary dials, which primarily control the heating system, but can also be used for other functions, like monitoring the car's performance, though this multitask setup might require some learning. The third thing that strikes is the incredible attention to detail. The quality of the components is superb, and bar an appearance on the seatbelt clasp, it's hard to find a trace of plastic anywhere. Everything you can see and touch appears to be made from leather, aluminium or carbon fiber. The steering wheel, for instance, is milled from one huge aluminium billet. Other things to note include excellent forward visibility thanks to slim windscreen pillars, and less than excellent rear visibility, the view bisected by the strange central cabin divider running top to bottom, and the large spoiler at the tail. Extreme luxury extends to refinement. Astonishing ride comfort for a 261 miles per hour car. No other hypercar matches it here. The Chiron is unique among extreme supercars for focusing as much on luxury and refinement as it does on performance. And despite the huge 20-inch front and 21-inch rear tires and the mammoth engine behind your head, the cabin is so quiet that even beyond 150 miles per hour, you don't need to raise your voice to be heard. The ride comfort is also excellent, particularly considering this car has been engineered to remain rock solid at almost 300 miles per hour, smoothing always surface imperfections and gliding over cobbled streets better than some hot hatches. Factor in the excellent seat comfort, and you have the makings of a very relaxed high-speed express. While some rivals might be fun for 15 minutes, the Bugatti is ready to tackle entire continents. Our final point is an unusual one to find in a section that normally extols the virtues of comfort and refinement. We can't help thinking that people buy supercars for the excitement, and that the Bugatti sounds a little too muted. Opulent items of standard equipment, some surprising omissions, however options list not for the faint-hearted for more than £2 million. You'd expect your hypercar to come fully loaded with equipment. And the car inspectors sound suitably opulent. The audio system, by home audio company Ecotone, uses real diamonds in its 4 tweeters, and the oval Bugatti badge on the nose is made from 140 grams of silver. That said, there are some notable omissions from both the standard equipment and options lists. There is no head-up display, for instance, no large touch screen for the infotainment system, and the safety equipment is worse than that offered by some superminis. Pricey options. The prices for options that are available, however, would horrify your average supermini buyer. If you want the exposed carbon bodywork, that'll cost you more than an entire supercar built by somebody else, and if you want to line the interior with carbon fiber instead of leather, that's a top-end hot hatch money. Whichever interior you go for, incidentally, we'll advise sticking with dark-colored leather for the dashboard to avoid bad reflections in the windscreen. Other options include different wheel designs, colored carbon fiber finishes, and bespoke paintwork. Essentially, if you've got enough money, and your request is technically possible, Bugatti will comply, no matter how tasteless they think your creation. Missing many safety items we take for granted now, but exceptionally composed at very high speed, enormous braking performance. Let's be clear about one thing. If you crash at the Chiron's 261 miles per hour top speed, you're going to get very hurt, and if you're doing it on a public road, there's every other chance other people will too. Given the performance capabilities, it's disappointing to see that the Chiron lacks now commonplace safety equipment like lane departure assist and autonomous braking. But Bugatti has gone to great lengths to make sure that the Chiron is fundamentally strong, stable, and able to stop quickly. Active aerodynamics improve high-speed stability even beyond 200 miles per hour. The Chiron feels completely composed thanks to its active front and rear spoilers, and the braking power is immense. Carbon ceramic discs are standard, gripped by 8-piston calipers at the front and 6-piston calipers at the back. During testing to legalize the car for sale, Bugatti was actually required to perform an emergency stop from over 250 miles per hour, so you can be pretty confident they're going to be up to the rigors of some traffic bunching on the M25. Carbon fiber strength, 6 airbags. Bugatti hasn't submitted the Chiron to Euro NCAP crash testing, but should the worst happen and you do crash, it's comforting to know that the chassis and bodywork is built from carbon fiber, the same material that protects F1 drivers from injury. There are also 6 airbags, including a passenger airbag which is claimed to be the first ever to fire through a carbon fiber housing. Bugatti reckons the 2-seater Chiron is the ultimate grand tourer. This may be true in terms of its supernatural blend of comfort and speed, but not in terms of its boot. This is only big enough for a modest aircraft cabin baggage suitcase, and while there is some additional space behind the seats, the overall luggage capacity doesn't quite live to Bugatti's claim that this is a true GT car.